What's up, guys? It is That Pan again. I'm here again with another video, and today we're finally doing the tier list. This has been a long-awaited video. People have been asking for quite a while. It's been months since I've done the last video on this, but I'm finally here, guys. I've been partially lazy, a lot lazy actually, and the more heroes they release, the more reluctant I am to do a video because it's like, god damn, I gotta talk more. But we are finally here to do this tier list video. I will say quickly before we get into it, obviously these are based off of my opinion, so if you do have a disagreement about how a hero is ranked, I do recommend dropping a comment section giving your thoughts on why and where you think they deserve to be more so ranked than I rank them, right? And this can help maybe other players who also have differentiating opinions. Maybe like kind of form their own. Either way, I do appreciate you guys for watching as always, and let's hop into the video. Okay, so we're gonna start off with Maxine. I feel like it's a tradition to start off with Maxine. So I just put her F tier every time. It's actually kind of funny. I'm not gonna try to rant in this video, but there is somebody who would like argued in my comment section about Maxine being F tier or something. Guys, I'm not gonna rank a hero better because she's good at gathering. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. She's a good gather hero. That's it, and that's all she's good at. Okay, I'm not gonna rank her higher than that, based off of her being a professional gatherer. Next, we're gonna do Cynthia. I'm gonna put Cynthia C tier. To be honest, she's only here because she's more useful than any heroes that heroes I feel like I'll put in D tier. More or less. Although Cynthia's solid in regards to speed, she's just that for the most part. Maybe if you spend on her skin, then she'd be considered more valuable, but even then you're also having to spend a pretty considerable amount of money to get her skin, and that just depends on if and when the event comes around. So, this is pretty like iffy to me. But she's not really a necessity. There's always heroes like a Dut and Miyamoto if you really want to be fast and strong, right? All in all, working on her is up to your own discretion. I just don't really recommend her. I don't really care for her. And yeah, that's about it. Next, we're going to do Maya real quick. Maya, I'm going to put in F tier as well. Honestly, Maya is okay, but there are too many better options for her to be feasible unless you're running, like 5 range marches in the field realistically. I don't really see a point for you to invest her at that point unless she gets an upgrade. Just really not necessary. I mean, she is a police station hero. At least she's like more obtainable than some of these other ones. But realistically, why would you work on Maya? There's just I don't know. I don't really feel like it's a smart investment opportunity. Alright, and my next hero I'm probably going to do is Chasey, and I'm going to actually introduce you guys to my built different tier. There are going to be very few heroes in this tier. I'm really trying to make sure there's not too many upper tier heroes. It's hard to do though, because there's a lot of heroes that are meta, change the meta, and some of these do depend on like situations, right? Like I wouldn't recommend like everybody to invest in Bard because he's mainly for rallies and stuff, even though he might end up being in like S tier or something. But he'd be there. So, like you gotta also kind of pay attention to that. But I will be throwing Chasey as my first built different hero. This is a new tier I made, and the reason I'm putting her here is because she's just an insane Garrison. She literally revolutionized riders for Garrison in a sense. And not only is it viable in Garrison, it's viable and doesn't feel like you're gonna get shot in the foot utilizing her on the field, right? Not to mention she also has a super weapon, which makes her even more like insane, right? Because you are able to transcend her skills. This is obviously mostly designated towards whales. You can get a super weapon, or at least like you can get super weapon fragments and stuff without spending, since the requirement is only like 300 of the whatever it's called for the event, which you can save up pretty easily, but it is pretty hard to actually unlock, super weapons, fragments and stuff, and then you also got to transcend skills, which takes even more fragments, but at the end of the day, it does offer the opportunity for you to make her more useful, kind of invest in her, and push her up to a higher skill. So I do think overall Chasey's really good. I think she has like a very good ability to play in like all regards, be it offensive, defensive, and on the field. And yeah, I don't know. I just like Chasey overall. She's pretty solid. And next up, we're going to go with Sarah. As far as gather heroes go, she's pretty good. And she does offer some, usability in aspects like her speed from jumping, node to node to node. But that's really all I see her good at. And maybe grabbing some in and stuff and running fast, whatever. It's not really a personal favorite. I can see why she'd be useful and stuff. But in a fight, I'd obviously rather be off with other heroes. Like maybe someone wants to debate me on that. I don't really vibe with her. And next, we're going to do Marco. So Marco is, for me, an A tier. And I know I've been negative about Marco, although a main reason of that is just my lack of interest in a hero that costs double the relics without substantial enough difference being added to my gameplay, right, for it to be worth it. AKA, they're not breaking the game. Like, let's say, Chasey in some regards. Although that being said, Marco is a pretty solid hero in a lot of regards. He's decent on the field. I don't want to make this, like, too lengthy, as there's a lot of heroes to cover. But I'll also mention how he's like not tied down to infantry. In a sense, if you check his skills, they're not exactly infantry based. I've seen and had people run him with like range marches and stuff, and he's also pretty good as a rally hero in all honesty. So he offers like versatility in more than one area like the field. But I don't think he's exactly my first choice to go in like field or rally either. So he doesn't really deserve an S tier for me. I do think like he's overall pretty good. I'd honestly be close to putting him in S tier for like that reason, but like it's just hard for me, right? I don't want to put too many heroes in S tier. Like I'm probably gonna have a good amount of heroes in A tier too, So like maybe this is gonna be jumpy, but yeah. All right, and we are getting to our second built different hero. We're gonna go with Stella already. We're gonna throw Stella up here. So I'm gonna say Stella has shown some exceptional rallies in regards to tanking. Pretty good. I will say, like, obviously her damage output is very little if you're trying to, like, smash a Garrison in a little amount of time. But at the end of the day, this game is based a lot around endurance. Maybe unless you're playing, like, what's it called? Genesis War, which is more fast paced. I guess you could disagree, but like Island Raid, Archipelago Raid, these are endurance based, so you don't really need quick damage. You just need stuff that's going to trade the best. But yeah, she's pretty tanky in all regards. She's got good enough damage. I've seen her run on Garrison and perform extremely well. But yeah, she's been considered a really good Chasey counter, which honestly there was literally nothing to counter Chasey. If I'm gonna be honest, I like could not find a single hero to properly counter her on the defensive until we had like Stella and even Bodala in some regards, right? But yeah, overpowering Chasey, I find that to be just a pretty useful aspect in itself. But she's also got pretty good field capabilities as well as also showing capabilities, like I said, of garrisoning, making her pretty inflexible overall and does good in all these regards. Mind you, she also has a super weapon, so she is made even better if you are capable of investing in said super weapon and transcending her skills, which just only push her forward in, all regards. And since we talked about Bodala, I am now going to throw Bodala in A tier, and we're going to talk about him. Although I know some people might disagree with me, be it he saying he deserves higher or lower, I do think A tier suits him for me at the very least, considering he can be a flexible hero, be it rally, field, etc. But he's just not meshing well with me. I don't personally like him as much on the field as the next guy. And this comes down to preference, obviously. There's a lot of people who field differently and love the guy, but it also might just be my playstyle. Given I control so many accounts, also, I can't utilize him like I'd maybe want to normally. But yeah, overall, he's pretty good on the field. He's been pretty good on rallies as a like Stella companion. I have seen like Stella and Eddie also perform well, but it depends on what you're going for, like tankability. I think like the Stella Bodala works really well in Archipelago Raid when you just need a hero that's going to stay like fully capped off as long as possible, right? You want it to be completely full instead of over like damage utilization. I mean, like this is the same reason you don't see people running like Miyamoto and Eddie rallying a tower instead of like Stella and Eddie or something. At the end of the day, like I said, you want your like tank rally in this case, taking the least amount of damage while dealing good damage, and then letting your other two rallies slam the Garrison and take really good trade-offs instead of just trying to aim for damage and then your main rally that's tanking is getting shredded while your other two rallies are dealing damage. Then you're not really helping your team in any regard. But yeah, you guys get what I'm saying. And from there, we're going to probably move on to Ethan. I know I'm doing like a bunch of the built different heroes already, but I do want to kind of run through them real quick. I found this to be kind of, useful to go through. I do put Ethan here for the same reasons as basically every other built different hero. I think like the flexibility and the kind of just changing the complete game meta is honestly really nice. I've seen like what's it called? He excels in the field, right? He's very flexible. Ethan's obviously a Garrison like, or he's like built to be a Garrison main. But that being said, he's also extremely good at like rallying and stuff. But he is extremely exemplary at his job. You know, his Garrison capabilities are absolutely insane from what I've seen. And honestly, this might be another meta shift. I wouldn't even say like he might replace Chasey, but like there's a good chance like he might honestly replace like where she's at, because I think like it's pretty easy to counter Chasey now if you have like a good tank rally and you have just two other damage dealing rallies to slam into her. She doesn't have really good counter damage. Whereas like I like someone like Lewis and like Ethan, because you know they have what's it called? The range in general, right? They put out really good damage to, you know, side rallies and stuff. Although obviously it's not their main focus, they're able to drop these rallies pretty quickly, which does kind of make up for any lack of counter damage like something like Ragoro might have and all that kind of stuff. You guys get what I'm saying? Yeah. I've even seen him pretty useful on running rallies and stuff. He really broke my expectations in all regards. He's not really disappointed me, and yeah, that's all I can really say. I do not know yet though if he's like he would be an optimal rally choice over like Sophie or Julia. There's still testing to be done, but overall I am extremely satisfied with Ethan. And like I said with the other heroes, there is the possibility for transcending skills and stuff, which makes him even better. You know, you're able to invest in super weapons and make these heroes even more exceptional. And next, we're going to do a Victor. Okay, so I'll throw a Victor in A tier. I love Victor, though. He's a pretty good killer Garrison. And honestly, no, I'm going to throw him S tier. I think he deserves S tier. He's a killer Garrison, though. He can be used pretty universally with any unit type. In regards to Garrison, he has the ability to buff all units, making him an even better Garrison hero, especially in regards to your base. If you're not really running Garrisons and stuff, though, I wouldn't really recommend you having to invest in him. I just like would keep my relics for somebody else. But you know, overall, given his job, he does really good at said job. And now we are going to do Jaden. So we're gonna throw Jaden F tier. Jaden's pretty useless, and his first skill doesn't even make him like useful as a support hero, is what sucks about him. He just like, it cuts his damage in half if you throw him as a support hero, and nobody really wants to lead with this guy. He is like, his talent tree isn't even like appealing overall. Like there's really no reason for you to invest in Jaden. I know the game kind of gives into you early out, but it kind of does that with like heroes that you really wouldn't want late game, right, to like trick you into investing in heroes like these. Overall, just keep your hands off these heroes, or at least like Jaden. I wouldn't say like for the Gathering heroes, but you guys get what I'm saying. And next, let's do Carry. So I don't really like this hero. Even when Peterson was considered good, I felt like making a hero directly to counter a hero's heal factor, and you know, literally being made just to counter said hero, doesn't make him exactly good, especially since the counter isn't good enough to just make Peterson completely useless, is what also sucks, right? I feel like he literally just would like you wouldn't be putting out nearly as much damage as like other heroes, right? So it's like, is it really worth just debuffing his healing skill? I never really liked him. It was never that impressive to me. You're lacking a lot of damage and results to his skills trying to counter like someone like Peterson. Also, like given Peterson's fall from grace at being the dominant, you know, Garrison hero for quite a while, I just find him completely useless now. And if you are investing in him, you're probably in a much lower G that still does utilize and invest in Peterson for Garrison. And like I just don't see that very useful, especially if you end up upgrading your game experience later, going to a higher G where like Peterson is just never utilized. I just don't see that being an optimal investment at all. And the next hero we're going to talk about is Jonathan. I will also be throwing him D tier, and I'm just going to say this: he's pretty subpar, right? Overall, I wouldn't really recommend him to anybody. Like, there's plenty of rider heroes that are pretty solid on the field. You know, do decent enough in rallies, do good enough in rallies, whatever the case. He's just not all that. I don't really have anything to say about him. He's just not all that. Like, that's all I really got to say. Next hero, we're going to throw Peter in F tier. Peter just sucks at his job. He sucks at stuff that isn't his job, and he sucks. That's all I wanted to say. I'm going to throw Hank there as well while I'm at it. He's kind of in the same category. I would never really invest in these heroes at all. There's just no real reason. Next, we're going to do Lee. Lee, you are D, buddy. He's pretty subpar as well. He's easy to melt. His damage is pretty low. There's really no reason to invest in him, especially with all the current meta heroes. I did invest him in the past, but like there's just so much more now. Like you don't need heroes like these guys. So next up, there is Ragoro. Some people might disagree considering how meta is right now with Ragoro being, Garrison and all. But I'm going to give you guys my reason. I'm going to place him B. And the reason I put him here is just his lack of ability to play multiple roles effectively. Not to mention the only reason he's been made back into being a viable Garrison hero and such is due to the addition of someone like Riven. And frankly, it seems there may be another shift in Garrison. I've seen multiple people shifting to Stella, etc. So I don't really want to rank him too high considering the changing atmosphere in the game. I know not everybody's going to change the Garrison to, automatically being someone like Stella, or maybe people just won't in general, but I do see it being a very high possibility, and there's probably going to be new infantry heroes soon enough anyways. And like I said, I just don't really see him being as good as other heroes that I rank higher. He just isn't very versatile. And like I said, there is always, the reasoning that like he's only made this good because someone like Riven. I just don't think that makes him like someone who should be ranked high. So the next hero I'm going to rank is going to be Jhin, and he's going to get rank C. Some people will definitely disagree with me on this, and although he's an okay rally hero, there's ultimately better options. And I don't really agree with using this hero. I can understand from the standpoint of it being an insta-awaken if you spend a bunch on it, but being one of your main heroes as a result would just make this, I don't know, I can't see this hero being like very useful. He's very expensive as well, and there's ultimately better heroes, right? I feel like this is just a hurdle you should ultimately jump over. I don't really see him being useful just because he has like extra rally capacity and stuff. I know some people think this is the same reason people were using like Hank and Peter for a while, just because they had extra rally capacity. Being able to hold extra troops does not matter if your damage output isn't all that. I still see some people use Jhin. I don't see it very oftenly used. It's just not my thing. I just don't get down with it. So my next hero is going to be Bianca. She is going to get an S tier, and I quite like heroes like these, buffer heroes. They provide a lot of value, not just to themselves, but every single hero within their vicinity, just making all your heroes better. And even if you're running one March, you can just buff fellow teammates and improve their performance. Overall, you guys get my point. I also like her speed factor, so I can throw her with a hero like Miyamoto or even a Rider if I wanted to exploit the speed while also utilizing the buffs. I find this to be just a very useful aspect, and it's kind of helped me adjust my lineups accordingly. So overall, I am a fan of Bianca. I think she's a pretty solid hero. And while we're talking about S tier heroes, we're also gonna throw Felix in the mix. Felix, he's a tanky ass rider hero, really viable in the field, and been pretty effective as a Garrison and rally hero, honestly. Although I'll say there's always the option of using someone like Victor with Chasey. I would quite prefer Felix. I'd be tempted to throw him in my new tier with the other heroes, given his flexibility in different roles, my built different tier. But overall, I'm gonna keep him S tier. I feel like Chasey kind of keeps her spot there, obviously, but I feel like Felix is maybe borderline. He's just really good. I just like Felix. And as for the next hero, we will be using Tom. Tom gets a C. He's pretty subpar on the field. Wouldn't really recommend him. Heroes like these are just mega tanky, right? I would consider Ragoro, Tom, just really tanky heroes, and I don't really like that. I don't really like that on the field. They're not good for swarming. Their damage output's really low, and that just means I don't know. They don't really trade all that crazy. I guess he could be a backup Garrison option, but it's not really worth the investment given the current meta. I just keep him out of the limelight, to be honest. And as for the next hero, we will be using Jacob, and Jacob is going to get a C tier. He's a decent enough Garrison hero, but there are still, in my opinion, better options for this hero anyways. He's usable in the field, but as I said before, with my other kind of statements, there's always better options. I'd really just opt out of this hero and go for the one next door, to be honest. He's good enough, but that's really it, right? You always have far better field options. When it comes to Garrison, you have Ethan, even Lewis, to be honest. I quite prefer Lewis as a Garrison hero far over someone like Ethan. Or I said Ethan, sorry, but I mean Jacob. But you guys get my point, right? I just think like you're always gonna have somebody better. And next, I am going to do Nora. And I don't know why I've seen so many people running her. Maybe I'm just tripping balls or something. But I don't really find her all that crazy. I'm going to throw her C. And that's just, honestly, frankly, frankly, I'm not a fan. I feel like making a hero legendary does not make it good. I looked through her skills. I know I haven't done a video on her yet. If you guys want me to make a video on her, I can, like of her new updated kind of version. I forgot to make a video. I was planning to. I forgot to. But yeah, I don't really care for her all that much. I understand that she's quite an easy hero to max out, right? Given like you can just like change her from being epic to legendary and awaken her. But I just don't really like her. I'm just not a big fan. I just feel like there's always better. So I will not be ranking her that high. As for my next hero, I will be doing Robert. He's not really a fan favorite, but overall I think Robert's okay. I don't mind running him on the field if I lack options. He's nothing exceptional, but he does get the job done in the end. I will be ranking Robert a B tier. He's usable. I really don't mind using him. I just don't think he's like anything crazy. If I'm gonna run like 3 infantry marches, he's somebody I'd consider. But there's still like other heroes that I'd also be like, maybe I should run this over him. So it's kind of like he's an option. That's really it. He's just an option of Manny. So I wouldn't really rank him all that high. There's Spin, and I'm honestly going to rank Spin B tier. Frankly, most of the rider heroes are pretty similar in skill level, so I had to put somebody here. He's decent enough on the field, and he used to be a primary rally hero for riders, which has now been replaced in both regards. If you're a rider main running multiple marches on the field, he might be worth it for you. But honestly, given how the meta has changed quite a bit, there's new heroes like Felix, for example, who's just utilized way more, even like Chasey and stuff. You just don't really have a reason to run Spin unless you've already invested in him and you haven't invested in the other heroes yet. So that's just kind of how I feel there. Next off, we're going to do Chun. Chun gets B, okay? She's kind of a whatever state right now. I mean, I would have recommended using her in the past, half a year maybe, or wouldn't have recommended using her in the past half a year. She's kind of fallen off. A lot of her skills are just okay. And sometimes, it's just a turnoff. And at least even recently, I'd consider running her if it was a range main, if I was a range main with like 3 or so odd marches of range. But even now, there's more and more better heroes. And considering her first skill, which makes her like, I feel like it just makes her kind of a terrible support. She can just sit out on the sidelines. I don't really have any reason to use her anymore. Like there's, like I said, there's just plenty of options. Alrighty, so the next hero is going to be Peterson. I'm going to put Peterson as a B tier as well. He's honestly an okay Garrison. He's lost a lot of relevance with the introduction of new and newer heroes. Not really optimal. He's still usable. If you were to use this hero, I would definitely use him in smaller brackets, as like that's where you usually see him still used at. People who've already invested in him, etc. It still works there. I wouldn't really use him in higher brackets. This is generally just for lower Gs, especially one where you may be struggling on fillers. But it's generally a worse than like a combo like Ragor or Riven. At this point, you just have better investments. I wouldn't really recommend it, but wouldn't say he's completely irrelevant yet. Just depends on a lot of factors. So, I wouldn't really recommend him to invest in currently if you already like, you have plenty of options is all I'm going to say. You have plenty of other options you can invest in, better options you can invest in. So honestly, unless you've already invested in him, I just wouldn't go for this guy. So next, we're going to do Lewis. I know Lewis has lost a lot of his relevance, but he's nonetheless viable in many fields. I won't act like he's, my number one option on rallies now, but he's not like, because, there's always Bard or even other options like, people using Sophie, people using Ethan. Lewis is still being considered, but like he's just not like my first pick. I'm going to throw him S tier though. I feel like he's still pretty flexible in all regards. I'm going to keep him S tier just because I feel like he's very flexible. There's always better options, although I do like the fact that there's alternatives and stuff. Not to mention, even if he's not like your main rally choice or he's your main choice in top brackets, Not everyone's, able to invest in someone like Bard, who is a top commander hero, or Ethan, who's also a top commander hero. Sophie, more viable. She's a, obviously real life hero. And, it's really up to your opinion, obviously, if you run him. But, he's pretty flexible. He's a roulette hero, which makes him, much easier to obtain as well. I believe, did they make him a police station hero? He might or might not be, I'm not sure. But overall, he's much more investment friendly. He's still very useful in like being used around the clock, right? Being used on Garrison, being used on the field, and rallies depending on your scenario. I wouldn't like choose him as my first choice now if I'm like a rally main. There's, like I said, obviously other options like Bard, Sophie, Ethan, Julia, etc. that people kind of prefer to use on over him. But yeah, either way, you guys give me your opinion on that one. And yeah, I do think he still deserves to be an S tier. And while we're talking about Bard, I will put him S tier as well. I wouldn't really recommend everyone to get him. He's okay on the field, but I wouldn't really run him unless you run multiple range marches. If you're a rally leader, he's pretty useful. His super weapon does give him like skills, right? Giving him the chance to transcend, making him an even overall better hero and rally leader. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to say. Some people might consider him built different, but I don't think he I don't know. I feel like there's so many heroes now that I don't really think he should go that high up. I do still think he deserves his S tier though. I'm gonna keep him around the front in any case. As for Mei, I'm going to give you a B tier. Honestly, there's a lot of decent rider heroes. Mei is her upsides, but she doesn't really stand out, especially for me to invest in twice the relics to awaken her. I just don't really see her worth awakening in that case, frankly. And that's really all. I don't really think she's bad. I don't. Oh, I put freaking what's it called, Sophie. My bad, guys. I wasn't paying attention. But yeah, Mei. Yeah, she's just nothing exceptional. Don't really care for her. Don't really think she's anything crazy. So yeah, she gives B. Next, we're gonna do Miyamoto. I'm honestly gonna put him S tier. You could really put him or a Det here interchangeably for the same reports. For the same reasons. They're good enough in the field and are viable, I suppose, on Siege. Although there are now Siege options that are far more better. In my opinion, to each their own in this kind of case. But I really do think stuff like speed and stuff, utility goes a long way, so I do kind of like him even better for that. I think being able to be fast is just really useful, especially if you're kind of an in and out player, if you're running in murder balls and stuff to help your team out. Overall, do like Miyamoto, and I'm also going to put a Dut as an A tier. And this might be a little bit unpopular, dropping her from S tier, but hear me out, guys. She's a good hero, but they're still better in regards of heroes who have multiple utility purposes, such as Garrison, Rally, Field, etc. And honestly, I don't really want to throw her and Miyamoto both in S tier. I feel like it's just kind of overdoing it. And yeah, I feel like her speed is also a really good factor I enjoy. I'm sure many people would use her for that reason. I'm sure many people would also rank her S tier for that reason, just because she's their main hero. She's able to be utilized for easy kills if you're very hyperactive and able to run around the map. And, like I said, it's to each their own with these kind of rankings and stuff. But I do think I'll just throw her A. I do think there's still better rally hero options, Garrison options. In regards to field, she's very viable. But yeah, I'm gonna keep her A. Sophie, I'm going to put her built different, honestly. I put her here for a few reasons. I have found her quite nutty, although there's still limited material in her, given that she's a newer hero. So I can't really say for a fact if she's going to stay in this tier, but so far she seemed extremely viable. But yeah, she's been very useful for Garrisons, surprisingly. This is mainly for one-on-one scenarios. I wouldn't really run her with multiple rallies hitting you. I still have to test this a bit. She is useful for attack, clearly. Rallies and stuff, field fighting, and all the above. Her damage output has just been it's pretty top tier, so I don't really have any complaints about her. So I do think right now, as of now, she deserves to be built different, just because she's built different, guys. All right, and now we will do Eddie. I like Eddie fundamentally My only complaint is more or less him being relatively on the slower end. I'm going to put him A tier though. I find his damage output to be pretty good. If you really want to run a rally that's like tanky and does good damage, I'd probably run Stella and Eddie. I do think he's also pretty good on the field. He's just like I said on the slower end, which is the only kind of turn off about him. So next, I'm also going to throw up Julia, and you guys might be surprised about this, but I'm going to put Julia as an A tier, not an S tier this time. She's strong in the field and she's strong on rallies, but I will say with the implementation of new heroes, she's kind of losing some footing in both regards, even if it's only slightly. It does mean that there's probably a new meta kind of coming in, right? Like I've seen people running um, Sophie over her. People have been, obviously running Bard. It's just like Bard's just Bard. Yeah, and like even Ethan, right, being run as a rally hero. I'm not going to act like everybody's going to replace her, or everybody should replace her. I'm just saying, like, with the implementation of new heroes, she is losing some footing. She is a pretty good glass cannon hero in any regard, so I wouldn't really, like, turn anybody away from, like, investing in her. But yeah. And my next hero is going to be Lynn. We're going to put her B tier. There's nothing really wrong with her. She's, pretty decent. She's better than Chun in my opinion. And let me move her up because, yeah. Although I don't really I don't really pair her in Julia's rank either. I just kind of prefer the cannon type of heroes over someone like Lynn, who's got better tankability. Although I can see this tankability factor being useful for players, given that range is generally the first targeted on the field. So it might be a worthy investment for field fighters considering that. But overall, it's just an opinion, so I kind of just prefer Julia over someone like Lynn, and I'll rank her B. But I can see some people would rank her S in any case, if you guys get what I'm saying. Riven, she gets an A tier. I find Riven appealing. She's pretty exceptional infantry hero with multiple options and regards, right? I do think Garrison wise, she's really useful. On the field, not really my first pick, but I still think that she's pretty useful. Garrison, obviously, she's just not even useful. She's just an exceptional Garrison hero. Running them with Ragoro, running it with even Stella in some cases. Do just like her, like the shield factor, etc. And next, we're gonna do Elena. We're just gonna start going straight down the line. Elena is going to get an A tier. She's just good. There's not really anything for me to say about this, to be honest. It applies to most of the Rider heroes. I feel like they just do their job nicely, and that's about it. I don't really have anything good or bad to say about them. Next, we're going to do Kath. I'm going to honestly throw her B tier, and some people might not like this. I'm doing this for two reasons, though. Kath works just fine, honestly. She's not really fallen too far behind in terms of meta. Although the issue I have with her is she's heavily behind a paywall, which also could be the reason why some people might consider her even better. In a sense, she is the fastest hero to awaken, depending on your spending patterns. Not to mention, she also has a skin, just like Cynthia, right? Which, also is behind a paywall. But if you do spend on the skin, this makes her better and more useful in the field, which, might rank her up more. But overall, I don't think she provides enough for me to feel inclined, right, to invest in her and awaken her or anything like that. As for Bella, I'm gonna throw her an A tier as well. It's kind of for the same reasons as Elena. I just like and prefer her. I don't really have some long monologue to go in about her. And for the last hero, the new hero Jack, I am gonna say this real quick. This does come down to my preference. And to be honest, this also comes down to my lack of understanding of how the hero works fundamentally so far, and how he operates. So take my opinion with a grain of salt, but I've also seen him perform really well in rallies, which I don't really like the thought of using him in rallies just given his skills, but I have seen some rally reports of him performing pretty well. But I still don't like the thought of using him in any case over, other heroes that are more designated for the task. I think field hero wise, he's pretty useful, really useful if anything. I think the speed aspect will turn a lot of people onto him due to the fact that speed plays massively in the role in your role in this game, right? Especially for smaller players, be it running around the map or even fighting, let's say, a murder ball, and quickly getting out of the way when you're targeted. So, and I've actually talked to someone about it, something like this, not in the case of Jack, but, being a range main, right? They get targeted so much and, they'll just die really quickly, even if they're in a murder ball because people target range so fast. And, the fact that, someone like Julia is so slow kind of just all right, well, I'm going to get melted. But yeah, I do think the speed aspect kind of makes him really useful. Turn a lot of people onto him, especially given that there aren't really like quick, speedy range heroes. I am going to throw him S tier for now. If I learn more about him and think he doesn't deserve it, I will eventually like drop his rank. But yeah, I do think he's like pretty useful in the map. But I do think a lot of his like prowess does come from speed. He's not really bad on damage either, but that's just kind of how I feel right now. I don't really enjoy him too much. I do think the fact that he costs double the relics makes him less appealing. You know, obviously you can spin on him in the current event, which will make it much easier for you to rank him up and whatnot. But yeah, that is up to your own discretion. If you guys agree or disagree with anything in this tier list, though, do let me know in the comment section. This has probably been the shortest tier list I've ever done in terms of like how long it took me to do this. It took me 37 minutes, guys. God damn. But I do appreciate you guys for watching as always. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I do hope my opinion kind of enlightens somebody watching this video. And yeah, I do appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great day or night though. And I will be seeing you guys in the next video. And that is about it. Peace out.